tonight, huh? Hope you're all doing great. I'm back. I'm alive, but ill. So, sorry it's been a while. I'll get you up to speed on what's going on with me and the family and all that good stuff. And then we'll talk a little politics. I don't know how long we'll go this evening. Depends on how well I'm feeling. I got a runny nose and other things of that nature. So we'll just see how it goes. But wanted to get on here and stream. I don't know what the rest of the week will hold for me. Tomorrow's a big day. I feel bad. I did put a couple messages out that I was sick. I should have been more proactive, though, in letting people know that I wasn't going to stream, that I was ill. So I do apologize for that. I do swear, once I'm feeling better, the plan is to hit the pavement running, be getting a lot of content out there near every day, at least live stream 3-4 days a week, plus doing short form stuff every day. So that is the plan. So, but yeah, it's been a while since I've seen y'all. Had some holidays. I don't even know when the last time I streamed was. Pre-New Year's Eve, something to that effect. So it's been a hot minute. So, well, Happy New Year, Happy January 6th day. Tomorrow's a big day for me and my family. So, just to give you some idea of what's going on, I did end up working over New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. My wife's birthday is New Year's Eve. So, I unfortunately missed that, though. We're old people now, so we don't do anything exciting. That used to be, my birthday's July 4th, my wife's New Year's Eve, so that used to be big party days for us. Now it's just like, I'm lucky if I could get a day off. So, but then we had a fun New Year day. We spent time with the family, and almost immediately around that time, people started getting sick. So there were two. I got it from both ends, both at work and at home. Let's see, it would have been not this Saturday, but the Saturday previous. I came into work, and when I came into work, the one client I work with was ill, which is pretty much a guaranteed sentence to getting sick because you spend a lot of time in close proximity with people, and so you take precautions, you're lysoling everything down and, things of that nature, taking your vitamin C. I take those airborne gummies, but it was inevitable. And so the following day, I called my wife. I call her a couple times a day while I'm at work. And she said, unfortunately, my little man Hank was getting sick. And then it was about a day after that, I started to get sick. Not quite sure what we had. I think that there were two illnesses that we had simultaneously, but basically I think it was the flu. So my little man, he had it roughest. He had a rough time with it, and he's getting over it now. I'm getting over it as well. My wife doesn't have a voice at all. The one client I work with is still sick. So we've been going on 10, 11 days of being sick. And it came with fever and sore throat, coughing. My coworker who came in, the reason I'm here at work today was he still had pneumonia, so he was not doing so hot, even though I'm sick as well. But he didn't come into work today, so. But tomorrow is January 9th, which is my son's birthday, so Hank turns 4 years old. And so it's non-negotiable. I can't be here. I work an insane amount of hours. And so I let my office know. I don't care. I'm going home tomorrow. So someone will be in here. It was worse than when I had COVID. When I had COVID, it wasn't that bad. But this isn't the most ill I've ever been. I've certainly been sicker where it was more dramatic, more severe. But as far as the length, like 8-9 days, for it not being that severe, that's what was unusual. And unfortunately, my chest is congested. I got a runny nose. I don't have a fever. I haven't had a fever in a couple days now. But it makes streaming hard because I'm coughing a lot. When I lay down, I'm not sleeping so well. So, anyways, that's what's going on. Hank's birthday's tomorrow. So I don't think I'll be streaming tomorrow evening, even though I should be at home. So we'll try to get a stream in from home proper, maybe Friday. Yeah, I take airborne. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm taking. So that's what's been going on. So I apologize that I haven't been doing much content, but the other thing that's the hardest about it is both at work and at home, leaving both places is difficult because you feel like at home, I'm leaving my wife and my son sick. So it's just those two in the house sick, and there's no one to help with them. But when I'm at work, the client's really nervous about being sick as well. And so when I have to leave there, it sucks as well. So it's sort of, you don't have the luxury of being sick. Like you gotta keep going. There's only two people that work at the house I work at, the home healthcare house. And so the person supported and the two staff are sick. Someone's sick at work. It's that simple. And you don't get the luxury of being like, oh, I'm just sick. I'm going to lay in bed and someone will bring me hot tea and soup and stuff. It's like, nope, you're making the tea. You're making the hot tea or the hot soup. And so it is what it is. So, but it's over. It's getting over with. So I had a friend that got sick around Christmas and he said he's still coughing. So I don't know. Maybe I have the same strain as that. But we're here. So enough of that. We've rambled on enough about that sort of stuff. Wow, lots occurred. I don't even know if I can think back. Our news cycles are so crazy. Last time we were talking about the H-1B stuff. So we'll talk a little about that. And then some little personal drama stuff that I have with some other streamers. And there's not a lot of that because I haven't been engaging much. And I haven't been, honestly, I've just been trying to keep busy. So I haven't followed a lot of the news cycle, though I do know the minimal of the big stories that are being reported on. We had 2 terror attacks, which I haven't talked about. We could talk about that. We could talk about sort of Trump's rhetoric on Greenland, Panama Canal, Canada, all of those sorts of topics. Again, I don't know how long I'll be going. But as always, let's start off with the personal drama stuff. So, a lot of times you see people recalibrating that do political content around the time of elections, immediately following an election. It's almost like your new year if you're a politics streamer, because it's your chance to say, okay, we're the furthest away from an election. Things always amp up as you get to election season. So it's like a huge, valve's just been released and all the pressure's been let out. And so you can try new stuff, whether it be a streamer or being a political strategist. This is something that happens with a lot of people. And so you retool, you re-gear to what your strategy is going to be going forward. I know I've done that myself. I'm planned on doing that and still am doing that here going into the new year, barring that, I get better, I get healthy here, don't stay sick forever. One of the things that I see is you see a lot of these left-wing political streamers that were involved with things like Progressive Victory PAC. They're trying to regroup and do things like getting in contact with actual politicians, which is something that I've done on my show. It's interesting because I don't have as big of a reach as most of these left-wing streamers, but I've been extremely lucky where I've talked to 5 or 6 sitting congressmen, 1 senator, a bunch of people in the Pennsylvania GOP. Hopium Gardner, thanks so much for the $5, says, you think these wildfires have something to do with arson? Also, the fire hydrants have no water. That generally seems fishy. What's going on? Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the fire to what I know, little of it, moving forward here. So, anyways, I saw that Destiny and Pisco are now doing a show where they had a bunch of people, state-level senators, I believe, that are vying for leadership positions in the DNC. We're going to do Destiny's show. And so you had these politicians that were announcing, hey, I'm happy to be doing Destiny's show tomorrow. And they were announcing this on X. And I asked 2 of these politicians, seeing as how we just had 2 terror attacks and the political rhetoric in this country is amped up, and we see Democrats blame Republicans all the time, do they share Destiny's belief, where he said, which he did say, and if I was home, I could bring up the video and show this. Destiny said in the immediate aftermath of the assassination attempt on Trump, I'm not talking about the jokes about Corey Compatore, the firefighter that was killed. He said when he was asked by his co-host Pisco, did you want that bullet to kill Trump? He immediately said, I don't know what I could say because of terms of service. And then he said, well, I'll say this. The worst thing that could have happened was for an assassin to try and not kill Trump. That's the worst thing. So, as someone who's vying, a congressperson, state level, I believe, but still, that's vying for leadership in the DNC, you're now partnering with him to do a show designed to get outreach to different people. Do you agree with his comments? I think it's a fair point. It would be equally as fair if Donald Trump decides he's going to sit down with Nick Fuentes or Jared Taylor, or sit down with someone that says, I wish that Democrats would be assassinated. I will guarantee you that the Democrats, the mainstream media, and all left-wing streamers would say, oh my God, I can't believe that President Trump or that this Republican is sitting down with this person. They should be asked what they think of those comments. Now, I will give these Democrats the benefit of the doubt that they probably don't know that Destiny made this exact comment, though they certainly know that he said edgy stuff. I would say that they would know at least that, or they would have been informed by their team of that. They just think that the pros outweigh the cons in this specific case. Anyways, the reason I bring this up, twofold. One, I do think that what you'll see is now you'll see all of these left-wing streamers that were basically doing the red pill content and were silent until election season because they couldn't defend the abysmal record of the Biden-Harris administration. Now they're going to come out swinging, oh, Trump said this crazy, Trump that, Trump's rhetoric. Anytime there's violence, it's going to be right-wing rhetoric again. Wait and see. And so I think it's important when you have the assassination of, or the murder of the United Healthcare CEO, and there's so many people on the left, there are some on the right as well, but there's so many people on the left that are celebrating that. And then the extreme beliefs that somebody on the left had, such as over the assassination attempt of Trump, when you see some of these bigger voices like Destiny, I think that that should be highlighted for the American people. And it's not like Destiny said, my mistake, I was in the heat of the moment, obviously my rhetoric was out of control. That would be one thing. Perhaps then it wouldn't be something that we should focus on. But when you see these people that want to be the most hyperbolic and criticize, remember, Destiny said, as did many Democrats, that Trump saying fight like hell was a call to an insurrection, was a call to violence. So why shouldn't they be held to the same standard that they want to hold other people to? Yeah, I have PayPal, Patreon, and other places like that. I will have a P.O. box here soon that you could just send checks to if you want. So I think it's worth letting people know, because what you're going to see is the media, the Democrat narrative is going to try to focus on stuff that Trump says, blah, 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 blah. And I think it's important that we not lose sight of who the Democrats are as they try to rebrand themselves. And it's not just Destiny. This is something that's going to happen through Democrat politicians and media people all over the place. People realize now that the left became repulsive, and so they're going to try to rebrand themselves. And unless they apologize and have sincere contrition, why should they be allowed to? Cody Folsom for $2 says, glad to see you still kicking, Rob. Hope all's well. Still sick, but doing all right. So I think that it's worth pointing out. The other reason I bring it up on this stream is because immediately Destiny's co-host Pisco goes to X and goes, this is cancel culture. Rob's terrible. He's engaged in cancel culture. And you can go to my X feed or Pisco's and you can see this. So it's cancel culture for me to ask a politician that's sitting down with a political streamer, do you agree with this political streamer's views on violence, given that the news cycle that day were terrorist attacks, domestic terrorist attacks in this country? That's cancel culture? These people like Pisco, Destiny, these blusterous left-wing streamers that are internet tough guys that'll talk all sorts of shit from the comfort of their own home or on X are the most fragile snowflakes around. How is that cancel culture? 95% of Pisco's feed on X is him going, hey, do you agree with such? Why'd you do Charlie Kirk show? Why didn't you ask him about this? Why didn't you say this? Why don't you do that? Is that cancel culture? Now, Pisco was very clear. No, I'm not telling you not to do the show. I'm just saying that you should push back. That's all I'm doing. And you can see the DGGers come out of the woodwork like always. Oh, Robs, I can't believe it. Every time I type anything on X, I could be like, hey, I really think that we need to get Republicans to win this next election. What you'll see is these phony DGG people, Destiny people that are like, I used to like you, but this is it. This is the final straw. So now, in the next newest outrages, that's the final straw. That's the final straw. Cancel culture, Rob. What? You mean to tell me that I'm not going to be able to find Destiny, Pisco, any of those orbiters ever when people did interviews with, a politician did an interview with Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson or Charlie Kirk saying, hey, the person doing the interview, did you know that Tucker said this? Did you know? Do you agree with that? That's cancel culture, according to them? Not only do I not want the Democrats, politicians to not come, I hope they all get on brand with Destiny in that crowd. Absolutely. The more connection they have to those unhinged lunatics, the better. Now, with the caveat, I would prefer that people that are running for office not be unhinged lunatics and actually have policies that are good for the country. But if they're not going to, then be open with it. Yeah, go ahead. Pile around with people like Destiny. I don't want them to avoid him. I hope Destiny's channel grows 10 times larger and the clips of him making fun of Corey Competore for dying, saying Trump supporters are fucking around and finding out if they get killed when they go to Trump rallies. I hope that shit blares every day on every news channel. And Democrats go, yay, this is us, this is who we are. Chuck Schumer's sitting there co-hosting the show with Destiny. Sounds good to me. I'm not canceling. It's a joke. So I just thought it was funny. If you want to see a bunch of crybabies, anything to vote, because they're trying to come off as reasonable now. Destiny, what do you think the strategy for Democrats should be? Well, I believe the strategy for Democrats needs to be that we need to, understand that, the right, they lie about everything. Everything they say is a lie. They just lie constantly, constantly lying about it. That's all they do. Is they just lie. And we need to reapproach those people in the center and we need to go after them. Yeah, we get it, Destiny. As if you didn't lie along with almost the entirety of the Democrat media, punditry, social media personalities, about Joe Biden's cognitive health, about lockdowns, about the origins of the virus, about Russiagate, etc., etc. You're real reasonable now. Guy who was spiraling after the assassination attempt of Trump. And I had this conversation with Pisco, by the way, not specifically on this issue of the assassination attempt, but I talked to Pisco on stream, I believe, though maybe I'm wrong, about Destiny saying the first time I interacted with him, day 3 of the George Floyd riots or something like that, when he said rioting and voting are two sides of the same coin. Otis Driftwood, thanks for the $10. Keep rocking, Rob. I will, thank you. And Pisco's like, well, he's changed his mind. I'm sorry. People change their mind about political stuff all the time. That's normal, in fact. But there are certain things that you have to raise your eyebrows. Like, oh, yeah, political violence is okay. You don't like the way things are going? Go ahead and go riot. Burn down a police station. That might be something that you're like, really? I don't know that you could just go, never mind, I changed my mind now that the other side did it. Now I think it's really bad. I know I said it was the other side of the coin to voting previously, but now that I see it benefits us politically, now I've changed my mind. And you can't question me about it. I've just changed my mind. Until, of course, there's a left-wing attack or there's an attack on Donald Trump. Then I'll go back. Well, the worst thing that could happen was the assassination attempt to not succeed. Then he'll change his mind again. Bullshit. That's who they are. And the truth is, I've already analyzed what Destiny was. He's a crybaby. He's fragile. That's why he rage quits. That's why he has blacklist. He was spiraling out of control because he didn't like the news cycle. And he probably did want Trump to die. Anyways, next, fires. People were talking about fires. All right, for those that didn't hear, apparently some communities, the Palisades, Malibu, in California, there were bad fires raging. I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I've consumed very little media here, and so I know the bare minimum of this. It seems like there was a bad windstorm, and fire got out of control and it burned down huge neighborhoods. I've not heard if there's a death toll. I'm hoping that no one died. I really am. Property destruction's terrible. Don't get me wrong. It's not as simple as, oh, well, the insurance will pay for it. That's not how things work. So I feel terrible for all those affected anyways, but hopefully there were no casualties. 5 dead so far. That's terrible. It's horrific. And I saw a couple videos that were very scary of people filming while they're in their house and they're looking out all the windows and fires there. Now, I was reading that those people were told to evacuate previously, but nonetheless, I'm not really taking a stand. If you're told to evacuate, with all probability, with a natural disaster event, you should probably evacuate because you're putting first responders' lives at jeopardy for not doing it. But yeah, horrific. My heart goes out to them. It's terrible. So who's to blame? What's to blame? I don't know. I would be full of shit if I sit here and said, well, the culprit is this. Is it climate change? Probably not. We hear that every time there's any sort of natural disaster. It could be an earthquake, it could be a blizzard, it could be a tornado, it could be a hurricane, it could be a flood. We're always told it's climate change. That's the narrative that's supposed to go on. But let's be honest, there is an equal narrative that there's a vested interest from people on the other side pushing. Anytime that there is an area that's dominated politically by one particular group and something bad happens, the other side's going to say, see? Now, that doesn't mean that they're not right. The same's true of the climate change people. They could be right. I don't think so. I've done a little more research into climate change than the stuff I'm about to talk about. But because California is ran by, and the community there has been Democrats reliably since the 90s, there's a lot of blame that's going for the Democrats and the people in charge of Gavin Newsom, the fire chief there, the mayor there. Here's some of the things I've read. I've read for years that the forest management in California, the fire management is terrible, and that basically it gets dry enough there that you have to clear underbrush to make sure that that's not fuel for when a fire occurs. And they don't do that for whatever reason. They said it would discourage or would interrupt with habitats or something of that nature. And so this is a big argument that's gone a lot when we've had other wildfires that have raged in the region. I have no knowledge on if anything's changed on that front. I remember reading about that years ago, though. So I'm seeing that some people are suggesting that could be to blame. I see DEI being blamed. Gizmo, thanks for the $5. Glad to see me again. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. DEI on 2 fronts. One, the woman who's the fire chief, she's put out statements that say that diversity is important. That doesn't mean that you're incompetent at your job, but it certainly suggests that maybe it's not your top priority. So, for example, any job that involves public safety, whether it be working in healthcare, whether it be working with law enforcement, anything like that, if you're putting out there that your top issue is diversity. Otis Driftwood, thanks for the $5. Newsom screwed us. My cousin's house is gone because no water. We are next to an ocean. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. And then it turns out that there were problems in your department. It looks bad because, like, for example, this didn't occur. I'm just making up a hypothetical. If it turned out that the routine maintenance on the fire trucks wasn't done for 10 years, and so fire trucks were breaking down and they didn't have them, even though they had the money for them, you might look at the fire department and say, well, instead of your top priority being readiness to combat fires, you put that it was DEI. Maybe that's why these things didn't occur. But it is entirely possible to virtue signal to say that it's all about DEI, and that doesn't mean that you're not prepared, etc. Just saying. I saw a video of Adam Carolla saying that he applied in California to be a firefighter and was basically told as a white man, hit the bricks. If that's true, that's certainly something that you could blame DEI. If there's a lack of firefighters because they're intentionally telling people based on their sex or their race not to join in, that's a huge problem. But I don't know. I haven't heard the counter to that argument. You might read, actually, that's not true. We have more firefighters in California now than we ever had. In fact, we have so many, we don't know what to do with them. And despite having top-of-the-line equipment and the most highly professional firefighters in the world, the nature of this fire was, once it started, there was nothing we could do. That may be the case. I just have to plead ignorance on not knowing the specifics of this. And then the last thing is, there are reports that the fire hydrants were dry. That there just wasn't water from them. And I was also reading that there was a lot of rain in the past couple of years. So how could you have that much dryness? Well, I remember back when Joe Rogan had Trump on and they were talking about the mismanagement of California's water and basically how they're to protect certain wildlife, certain fish, that they weren't allowing them to like have water in these reservoirs. They said that they were intentionally keeping the reservoirs low. If so, what a huge mistake. I don't even know if mistake's the right word. At some point you have to say, when you see failure like these fires that occur over and over again, and when it constantly seems like the message is, well, climate change and the environment and, instead of like, well, how can we make reasonable steps to make sure that these fires aren't raging like this, to make sure we're prepared? At some point you have to say, it's willful negligence. It's the same with all of this stuff on the border crisis. Or the other thing that we didn't bring up, the UK, the grooming scandal. At what point do you say, well, shucks, well, what can we do? Oh, well. At some point you blame leadership. Now, while it is true that there are certainly people, and it's something that I'm guilty of it right now in this stream. I am making political points about this tragedy very shortly after it occurred. And it is something that, just from an outside perspective, is a little tedious and questionable. Anytime you hear of like a terrorist, you can't tell me, like, I found myself in this boat too. You're like, oh, I bet it was someone from that other group that I don't like. Or, oh boy, that sounds like it might be someone from a group that's sort of on our side. I hope not. What a terrible mentality to have. But we're humans, we're tribal. You can't help it to some extent to have that reaction. So I try to not, as best as possible, jump to conclusions, but I am giving my gut feeling. Here's what I'm saying. However, the vast majority of the people that control the narrative on the Democrat side, they certainly won't hesitate to blame any sort of natural disaster shit on Republicans or on Trump, whatever. Blizzards under Trump was Trump's fault. Flooding under Trump was Trump's fault. Hurricanes, Trump's fault. Republicans' fault. Climate change. Hurricane Katrina, Bush's fault. Then when Helene and what happens under Biden, whoa, the Maui fires, whoa. Let's not make it political. So, I'm sorry, I'm not going to listen to those people say, oh, no, only we get to do that. It's the same with rhetoric, the same thing. I've done this dozens upon dozens of times. Stochastic terrorism. Oh my God. Bernie Sanders fundraising off of Congressman Gifford getting shot. Is it even safe to walk down the street as a Democrat in Arizona? Then when a Bernie supporter shot Steve Scalise, all violent rhetoric must be criticized. Wait a minute. When it was a righty shooting a lefty, it was the right's rhetoric's fault. But when it was one of your supporters shooting Republicans, it was, well, we need to condemn all violence. Nancy Pelosi was asked specifically about it. How dare you, she said. Their rhetoric's never responsible. It's always Trump's rhetoric, Republicans' rhetoric, not theirs. Same's true here. So that is my very milquetoast Maui fire. I've probably looked at 10 minutes worth of stuff on it. I've been very busy and sick. So next, let's talk about Trump and Canada and Greenland and the Panama Canal. Again, keeping in mind, I've been very sick and haven't been looking at nuance on this. And I've just basically heard little sound bites and people's interpretations. Let me give my first gut feeling. Trump sounds unhinged. And I don't support a decent amount of what he's suggesting. Like, no, Canada shouldn't be a state. Period. End of story. Threatening Canada, which I haven't heard him do really. Maybe he did economically, but I don't think he did militaristically. Is certainly to make them a state is stupid. It's wrong. It's a violation of their sovereignty. And strategically, it'd be a huge disaster for Trump Republicans. You're basically importing a population of 40 million people that are like overwhelmingly progressive lefties. Now, if Canada was amicable to selling certain parts of the country, that's different. But I don't know how much of that's blown up. We'll talk about all this. Panama is a little different. I haven't looked into this specifically, but there is a lot of concern that if we end up having a geopolitical conflict with China, China is currently meddling in affairs in Panama. So there's potential hostile people that are involved and incompetence going on in the Panama Canal, which would mean that it's going, my understanding is the canal's damn near in a state of disrepair in certain parts, and it's affecting global trade significantly. So maybe some sort of pressure could be exerted. I would hope that there would be fair compensation for Panama for it, but I'm more amicable to that. Same's true of Greenland. Now, I don't know exactly what the geopolitical strategy is. I guess the location of Greenland, I'm assuming there's also resources in the country. But I'm guessing it has more to do with the geography, the location, for naval interest, because I know that there's been stories I've read in the past during the Cold War and other times where we've had naval ships patrolling the region because we're worried about Russia, potentially even other adversaries like China, patrolling the area. Maybe, but again, there seems to be more to it than just at face value. The Greenland situation's a little different because if the country of Greenland would vote to say, we don't want to be part of Denmark anymore, what's the argument then? Well, it's still Denmark's? Maybe. I'm persuaded by that to a large degree. But it all depends on who's in charge, right, and controlling the narrative when that matters. Now, having said all of this, I don't know how much of any of this is serious. I think 70% of this is just Trump shooting off the cuff. I think that he sees value, and people around him have talked about value of the Panama Canal in Denmark. The Canada thing's a total joke. I don't think he's serious about that at all. I think that, like I said, most of it's just him off the cuff. For better or worse, he's the exact opposite of Biden and Kamala, where they're carefully hidden away from the media. They're not really doing adversarial press conferences. Trump is who he was 4 years ago when it comes to, if it was me, I would have said, all of you people in the press from the mainstream media outlets, you're out. Screw you. I would still do press conferences, but it wouldn't have been people from the New York Times, NPR, ABC. Wouldn't have been those people. It would have been people from alternative outlets. That's what I would do. Trump can't help himself. He's going to put himself out there and he's just going to go off the cuff for hours. Go ahead, question. He's just going to say crazy shit. That's who he is. So I think a lot of it's like just that. He's more of like an artist than a scientist. Where he's just like, I'm just going to throw shit out there. And then maybe something's like, yeah, it sounds good. That sticks. And I think he also knows it's pissing people off, which he's probably gets a chuckle out of. So I think that's part of it. But I do think there's part of it that's grounded in truth, the Denmark and Panama, the Greenland and Panama situation. And I think that Trump understands, hey, what's up, Otis Driftwood, Crucible Crew? Thank you for $2. I think that he understands there's value in looking unpredictable. And that there's value in our allies saying, what the fuck? What is this guy doing? Because Trump is still looking at the Biden administration as basically the continuation of the Obama administration. And the Obama administration was so well loved by so many of the people in the EU, etc., because they could take advantage of the United States. Obama didn't really, everything was the U.S. fault and blah, blah, blah. Trump's like, no, you're going to pay for your fair share. They don't like that. And so how do you bring Canada to the negotiating table? Denmark to the negotiating table, the UK, all of these places. If you have no stick, right, the carrot and stick approach, here's what we could do for you. Here's the carrot. The stick is, you don't do what we say, there's going to be consequences. Well, there's never any consequences with Biden, Obama. And we've talked about it before. With our adversaries, your China, your Russia, Trump's unpredictable nature maybe helps keep them in check. Because maybe you're sitting there and you're listening, you're like, what the fuck, this guy's talking like imagine that you're Xi in China. And you're like, if you're taking this shit seriously, you're like, so wait a minute, Canada's basically allies with the United States, right? Yeah. But he's basically like, fuck it, we're going to take Canada over? What do you think that means he thinks about China? So I do think that there is a little bit of strategy in that Trump's just, yeah, I'm going to sound unpredictable. We'll see. Nothing's off the table. We'll sit down, we'll talk to people. Having said that, I would be vehemently against any sort of militaristic intervention using our army to forcibly take the Panama Canal or Greenland. Any sort of expansionism or intervention in that sense. I would be against it. We'll see. I don't think it'll come to that. I think the chances of that are extremely low. Less than 3%. So I think most of it's just Trump shooting off the cuff, a little of it him being a troll, and then part of it being intentionally unpredictable and looking unhinged so that people are like, we better stay in line because we don't want this guy we don't want to be the focus of his attention. So that's basically how I see that. I don't think I have bird flu. I don't know. Put a cough drop in here. Other stories. Canada, Trudeau's resigning. I mean, what a disaster that's been. What can you say? Long time coming. Feel bad that the people of Canada, I mean, they voted for it, but. And then I will talk about the grooming gang thing. So first, let's go back. Why is the grooming gang thing in the news? Otis, thank you again for $2. Trump's a powder keg we need. Biden is a not. So go back to the H1B thing. If you remember, hey, thanks so much, Kaiser Gaming YouTube. For $2 says, my part of the next bottle of NyQuil. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, Tommy Robinson, that's a lot to do with it. Elon amplifying it. Now there's a lot of people on the right that are pissed off at Elon and at Trump because of the stance on the H-1Bs. I talked about this a lot. I'll go over it just in case someone missed it. I think that directionally, I don't disagree with the idea that we should take a small cream of the crop, vet them, make sure that they will be able to assimilate into the United States and the values therefore, and that they will greatly contribute to enriching the lives of the people in the United States. I don't mind that. What is that number? Would I be furious if that ends up being 80,000 people a year? No. I think we'll be okay with that. Obviously, the millions of people coming illegally, blah, 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 the system that we have set up currently is terrible. Now, there's abuses within the H-1B system, so it's not that simple. And we should always be prioritizing Americans first. That's what our government should be about. But the real problem wasn't what Elon's saying or what Vivek's saying or what Trump's saying. It's how they said it. And so there is a significant question that you have to have when you listen particularly to Vivek and Elon talk. Are they looking, and Sam Hyde beautifully breaks this down using comedy, we're not just cogs in a machine. That's not what the country is. It has to be more than that. And I talked about, like, to me, a country is more akin to a family than a corporation. And so I use this example. I have two brothers and a sister. So if my parents pass away and then I become the patriarch of the family because I'm the oldest son, do I say, hey, I love my two brothers and my sister, but here I can import two brothers and a sister from India that are way higher IQs and make way more money. And now the Noor families is better off. Then I bring them in and they say, yeah, actually, Rob, you suck. You're making shit for money and have a low IQ. So we're going to bring someone in to replace you. Now 4 brand new people in the Noor family, they're doing great. So what? There has to be more to it than just who makes the most money. It also reeks of materialism, particularly what Vivek's talking about. That the highest values just work harder, turn out more widgets. That's what life's about. Not like get married, have kids, have a relationship with God. Not that. No. So, to me, the way they approached it, and they have to understand how stupid it sounds because the central issue that Trump's been running on since 2016 was we need to protect our borders and secure America for Americans. And so being like, well, yeah, but this is only 80,000 people. Shut up, you plebes. We're just talking about the cream of the crop because American culture is screwed up and it's, our education system screwed up and stuff like that. It was not a good way to go about it. Ultimately, though, I think it's much to do about nothing. To me, I don't think that this is fundamental. Like you see people on the right, they're like, this is it. Trump sold out. Elon sold out. Blah, blah, blah. I don't see it like that big of a deal. But I don't mind the infighting and the people criticizing. It's fine by me. And I do think that there were capitulations that were changed in tone of people like Elon and Vivek that were like, yeah, there are significant problems with the H-1B visa system. Anyways, that's how I felt about it. So the same people that are saying Elon sold out, then the two other things that are going on with that is he banned a bunch of Groyper accounts. Or, I don't know, bann's not the right word. Took away their blue check, demonetized them, limited their reach, etc. There's a lot to say about this as well. First off, it reeks of Elon's now pissed at these people because they challenged him. That's what it looks like from the outside. Now, maybe that's not the case. I see people defending Elon saying, no, these people doxed people or they, were pushing CP photos and blah, 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 blah. Maybe all that's true. But really at the exact same time, these accounts weren't doing that stuff before. It was just when they started fighting with Elon that all of a sudden that this happened. I don't know. And then there's a lot of anti-Semitism. Now, there is anti-Semitism and then there's anti-Semitism, right? You could say, I think that Jews have a disproportional influence in our country and they're pushing Zionism. That's not anti-Semitism. But if you're like, I hate all Jews, they're all evil, they're drinking the blood of children, that's anti-Semitic. There's a difference. Sometimes the line could be blurry. here's the thing, and I've said this about Elon from the get-go. Elon is not a free speech absolutist. Neither is pretty much anyone. You'd be hard-pressed. How do you define speech? Well, many of our courts have defined speech as not just spoken words from the mouth, but also performance art and things like that. Pornography could be considered a form of speech. Do I think you should be allowed to have pornography? Maybe, maybe not. I would love to see it curtailed on X. I'm disgusted all the time when I'm just scrolling on X and I see pornography or images of people being killed. I think it's shit. And imagine if some kid's 11 years old and they have an X account. But what about, like, free speech absolutists? You say, like, calls to violence, libel, slander, things that are crimes, maybe. Sexualization of children. Almost all of us would have a line and say, no, that's clearly too far. Then in my imagination, or my thought, you're not an absolutist then. Thanks, Otis, for the $2. Says, I'm a Christian man with no followers. My ex is suspended. Huh. Now, here's the thing, though. I think Elon bought X and did a good thing. And I do think he was worried about the censorship of political opinions online. I do think that's large. But he also bought it as a business opportunity. He wasn't just like, how much should he pay for it? He wasn't just like, yeah, I'm just going to sink billions of dollars at a loss. Complete write-off. He's not going to do that. He's going to try to make it work. Because not only would that financially hurt him, but it also would make the purchase meaningless. If X becomes insolvent and collapses and ceases to exist financially and it has to go under, what was the purpose of buying it in the first place? And here's the thing. I've been saying this for years. I remember one of the first times I talked about this was the channel Politically Provoked. Politically Provoked, for those that don't know, was where Andrew Wilson first started streaming. And it was similar to like the Crucible. It was a brand that was primarily on YouTube. And this woman, Brittany, ran it. And they did debates and all of this stuff, and they had their own in-house debaters, and they started to move away from the direction of like Andrew, and they went more towards, I guess for lack of a better word, like Groyper type people. They're on YouTube, and you watch the show, and it's just like, N-word this, N-word that, N-word this. Now, do I think they should be allowed to say that? Yeah. Do I think there should be criminal ramifications for saying that? No. Am I mightily offended where I can't, like, get sleep at night? No. But I know what the inevitable consequence of that is. You're going to get banned. YouTube's going to say, yeah, we don't want that. Sorry. And you can say, that's bullshit. But we all know it. We all know that that's the rule. We know it. We understand that. As a streamer, you know that. You know what you're doing. So when you do it and then they ban you and you go, oh, you knew that's what was the consequence. And I'll be honest, I am not that pissed off about YouTube doing that. Because I do understand that these are businesses, there have to be reasonable limitations where they're going to be like, look, we're selling advertising. We're not going to bring people, like, if YouTube was like, we're going to ban people that are like, after the assassination attempt of Trump, that were like, yay, we should try, someone else should try. Would you blame YouTube for banning those people? You'd be like, that seems to be reasonable. There was just an attempt on the former president and frontrunner for president's life. 2 of them. People calling for more of those. YouTube's like, we're not going to have that. Now, I'm sure there are people out there, but free speech. But you have to understand, as a business, YouTube's going to be like, no. And so the best we can hope is that they draw the line in a reasonable place. I don't think that you should be getting banned, demonetized, shadow banned, whatever, because you're Republican or Democrat. I think that's shit. And that's basically what's happened. You shouldn't be banned for questioning vaccine advocacy with the pandemic, questioning the origins of the pandemic, questioning election integrity. Those shouldn't be bannable offenses. And I think that that's basically where Elon was coming from. When he's talking about the importance of free speech, he's saying you shouldn't be banned because you're Republican, you're Democrat. You're saying, I don't trust the results of this election. I don't trust the official government story on this. That's different than like, I'm going to use 15 different racial slurs for black people and Jewish people. Now, if I was infinitely rich, like Elon, would I just turn and say, whatever, say what you want? I don't know, maybe. It's not about money anymore. But to Elon, it's still going to be about money. And you can't blame him, really. So, I don't know. There are two ways of looking at it. There is the absolutist perspective where it's like, but once Elon's like, if they're going to ban racial slurs against Jewish people and black people, then we're only a stone's throw away from banning people for questioning an invasion of a country they don't like or the origins of a pandemic. Same mentality. But then the other way of looking at it's like, well, does the good outweigh the bad? Do you say, okay, there are certain things that we can't be talking about still on here? But overarchingly, it's way better than Twitter 1.0 was. Otis, thanks for the $2 again. Says promoting a speech platform, follow the rules, right? Yeah, to some extent. And that was always one of my big criticisms with YouTube anyways, and other places. You would get strikes and banned and shadow banned. Sometimes you didn't even know you were getting shadow banned. And other times, like especially YouTube, they'd give you a community guideline strike. They'd say your video violated our community rules on safety or election integrity. And you'd be like, where? It's not like they say at minute 1 hour, 23 minutes. They just say, somewhere in your 4-hour live stream, sorry, dude. Good luck. So it's hard to follow TOS when you don't know what the TOS is. So anyways, that's sort of how I look with this Elon. I'm not willing to be like, that's it, this platform's done, Elon sold out, blah, 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 because some groypers lost their channel. I will say, though, I sympathize with some of the people that lost their check marks, etc., because some of it does seem like rank pettiness. And there was a story on X that they're calling doxing, where this Adrian Dittman character that some people say is Elon Musk, some newspaper or some reporter found out that it's someone from Thailand or something to that effect, that it's not Elon, and this was removed because that's considered doxing because they put an anonymous person's real name. I don't know. It's an interesting question because what if Elon is this Adrian guy? Then he's looking at this story going, well, I know this story's false, and they just falsely smeared this dude saying that this Adrian Dittman guy's him, and it's not him because it's me. So I'm not going to allow this. I don't know. Yeah, and then there's a question, did Elon personally order it? So I think that the truth's somewhere in between. I think that some of it is pettiness on Elon's point of view, and that he's like, you see people like Jake Shields and like a lot of these groyper type people that are just, everything's the Jews all the time. So you're already like, this isn't helping our advertising. And then they're like, and fuck Elon, he's an idiot, and he hates white people. And then he's like, you know what, fuck these people. Then we're going to take a little closer look. Oh, what's that? They were doing some shit that's against TOS? Yeah. Take away their blue check. So, if I was one of the people that lost my blue check mark, I could see being pissed off. It's not something that I think, if it's done out of pettiness, is a good thing at all. However, I don't think that it's the end of the world as some people are putting it. And then the last thing those people say is, well, that's why Elon started bringing up this Tommy Robinson stuff and the grooming gang stuff, to change the subject. so that people don't realize that he wants to take away white people in the United States. I don't think that's the case. Maybe there's part of him that's like redirected conversation, but I do think it has to do with the Tommy Robinson stuff. I don't know the specific nature of why Tommy was jailed this time. All I know is let's steelman this position as best as possible. Reports range from thousands to hundreds of thousands of girls in the UK, starting in the 80s, going for decades, were groomed by Pakistani Muslim gangs. This went on for decades, very little done about it. And then internal investigation showed that at least some politicians and police knew of it and didn't do anything. And some of the reasons that we've been told why this occurred was for racial relations, that had this been made public, that people would have been upset. Otis, thanks so much for the $2. Says, Kuma Gremlin came after you? Destiny. Now, who would have thought? Now, the hundreds of thousands number, I don't know. To me, it seems like what they've done is they've took like the numbers in Rotterdam, how many cases there were there, and then said, okay, if that makes up 2% of the Pakistani Muslim refugees, immigrants, whatever, if we multiply by the population of those people, this is how many victims we're likely to have. I don't know that that's the best way to look at it. But let's just say at the minimal it was thousands. Let's say it was 4,000 or 5,000. That's grotesque, horrific. And even if it was in one, and the reason that justice wasn't served was because of the color of the person's skin, and it was like, well, we don't want to make a big deal out of this because we're afraid that it'll lead to racism. That's horrific. But let's be honest. As bad of a scale of thousands over decades is, that's not hundreds of thousands. I'm not saying it's not hundreds of thousands, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that these numbers matter. The scale of that's very different. For example, let's take it to something maybe we're more familiar with in the United States. Any time that an innocent person is shot and killed by police, it's unacceptable and it's horrific. But if we have riots for racial justice all across this country because the narrative is police are killing thousands of unarmed black men a year and the real number is like 8, you see the big difference there. But here's the problem. Let's start with the premise that British politicians, UK politicians, police, etc., did know that this was occurring at some level and covered it up. Do you trust those groups to now give you accurate data? Look at how bad the data is in the United States. Whether it be our job numbers that we see months later get revised, almost always in the same direction, at least under the Biden administration. Border numbers. When you have organizations investigating themselves that are accused of wrongdoing, do you think that they're going to give you an accurate depiction of what happened? Or are they going to cover their ass? So how can we have a fair account? Now maybe the accusation's bullshit. Maybe it was 1 or 2 people that said, yeah, we didn't want to say anything because they were Muslim. Thank you so much, Otis, for $2. Says Destiny doesn't respond to me, scared against a man. That sucks then, because people are distrusting based on the accusation. My gut feeling is, because it matches up with so much that we see also occurring in the UK right now and around the world. For example, in the UK, if you have It seems that there's more of a punishment if you happen to be a person making a joke online about gender ideology, or making a comment on some place like Facebook because you don't like the mass amount of refugees that are coming in. You get thrown to jail, but if you're one of the refugees that are actually engaged in acts of violence on the street or something in the course of a riot, maybe not so much. Nah, it's just this chair. So it would make sense if we see that problem today, that it was something that was occurring in the past as well. But I don't have much to add to what I have already said on this, which I think, to me, it's one of the most profound stories that I've ever read about, because even before I was a father, I have to imagine that if there was ever a line that would put you to, of the worst things that could occur in your life would be for children to be victimized repeatedly in the most horrific and heinous of ways. And for that to occur systemically, thousands upon thousands of times, by people that were brought in from outside the country, and then to have the people that were supposed to be looking out for you, your police, your politicians, not just stand idly by and let it happen, but then actually aggressively go after people that are trying to fight back, whether it be Tommy Robinson, or there's countless other cases where there's been reports of angry parents showed up to try to get their children back and were arrested themselves, or girls as young as 11 going to the police saying, "Help, I was just victimized," and them being arrested for being drunk or on drugs. That, to me, is as horrific as it gets. And what I saw in the UK was more anger at someone like Tommy Robinson than the actual gangs that did the grooming or the politicians and police that covered up for it. That's what I saw. That's what I continue to see. Now it's too late, maybe. Too late now. Now, even if you wanted to get upset and complain about it, you'll go to jail. That wasn't always the case. I mean, it was for someone like Tommy. So when I hear people say all the time, they'd say, well, if something happened in this country, we wouldn't stand for this. If the government did this, we wouldn't stand for it. I remember during the pandemic. What's up, Jess Gerald? It's fine. Don't worry about it, man. It's nice to hear from you. If you would have told people 15 years ago, they'll just say you're non-essential, you basically can't leave your home, you can't go to work, you can't go visit your mom in a nursing home, you can't have a funeral for your grandparents, you can't have a wedding for your daughter. People would say, no chance that would happen in this country. Otis, thanks for the $5. Says you're helping others and taking life. Appreciate. Thanks. But it happened. And when I saw what happened in the UK, now granted, the UK is a different country than the United States, but other than Canada, what's the most similar country to the United States? Probably the UK. And they watched their daughters groomed in the most heinous ways possible. Found out that their politicians and police officers covered it up. How many of those politicians or police officers have been held accountable? How many have been fired? How many have faced criminal repercussions? And what can you do? But when you have someone like Tommy Robinson, they're like, oh, that's not who we are. And you just shake your head. You're like, how can this be? And so now the story, Elon talking about it a lot on X has brought the story to the forefront again. I hope justice is served. Those cowards, if there was one police officer, one politician, and I'm sure there were many, that knew this was occurring and turned the blind eye to it, because they were like, well, racism's. May they live in eternal shame at the very least. I hope none of them could sleep at night. At the worst, or at the best, it is the most indescribable moral cowardice imaginable. Allowing the most vulnerable of us, children, to be sexually exploited in the most horrific of ways. So what? You as an adult don't have to worry about being called a racist? Intentionally allowing the victimization of children, because as an adult, you're like, well, I don't want someone to call me a mean name. It was the same type of shit with the pandemic, where we punished children. We knew that schools were one of the safest places to be. Oh, but they could spread the virus to the parents, to the teachers. So we're intentionally harming children for the benefit of adults? What does that say about our society? So I hope this story never loses traction. It never should. Just like the pandemic shouldn't, and all that shit. Just like people after the assassination attempt like Destiny. They were like, well, the worst thing could happen was the assassin shot at Trump and he lived. None of that shit should ever be forgotten. Epstein list, yeah. Jack, as I see your comment there. Not everyone that flew on Epstein's plane would be guilty. Not even everyone that was at his house. If you hung out with Epstein post his conviction, where he pled guilty to sex with an underager, and you're not like family or something to that account, then there should be serious questions raised about you. But not everyone that went to a Diddy party did all the things Diddy did. Not everyone that hung out with Epstein did everything that he did. But certainly there were a lot of people that were involved in that. And if it turns out that Trump was a person, although all signs point to it being absurd, but if Trump was a person that was involved in sexual trafficking of underagers, he deserves to spend the rest of his life in prison. All right. It's going to be time for me to take some more cold medicine here, so I'm probably going to wrap up. I'll try to stream Friday. Like I said, tomorrow, I'm still getting over this illness, so tomorrow is my son's birthday. He'll be turning 4 years old, so I doubt I'll be streaming. I'm going to try to spend the day. Hopefully, the person comes in to relieve me tomorrow morning, and so I can get home early and spend some time. And then Saturday's his big birthday party. So we're hoping that we're all feeling better by Saturday. We rented a small building that we always rent, and we got it catered, and it is Wild Kratts themed. Do you guys remember the show Zubumafu, if you're from my generation or a little younger? With the lemur that talked and stuff. Well, the two guys that did that show on PBS, their names was Chris and Martin Kratt. Now they have an animated show called The Wild Kratts, and it's all about animals and stuff, and my son loves it. So that's what the theme is for his show. It's going to be animals and such. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. So, but the plan is, once this week gets by, hopefully then I'll be feeling better. I've talked to a couple people. We're lining up some shows that I'm going to be doing, interviews and what have. I do want to give a special shout out and apology to Grid Motorsports, who you see sometime on my show. I was supposed to do a show with them last Friday. Unfortunately, I was sick and had to cancel. So I will be doing that show as soon as is convenient for him. I'll make sure that I make that up to him. So, but other than that, thank you all for being here, and apologies that I've sort of been MIA. I'm getting better though, and I appreciate you sticking with me. I have 132 people watching tonight. I'm very happy about that. I didn't know. I thought maybe people will have forgotten me. So I'm glad that you're all here. So Happy New Year. Look forward to seeing you all hopefully Friday. And as always, have a good one.